Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this series of lectures where we're going to look at how we make data go from point A to point B. Now, before we start out, let me point out that even though I've called this routing, it's really not about any hardware or devices, like a router or router or whatever you call it. Of course, we're dealing with the Google Cloud here, so everything we care about is software-defined networking. Also, although OSI's 7-layer model of networking is very useful, our look will be more general than this. That said, if you aren't already familiar with the OSI model, you can check out the linked resource, because it is quite helpful to understand. Later on, I'll talk a little bit about the transport layer versus the application layer, meaning layer 4 versus layer 7. Now, if you look into routing, such as if you read the Wikipedia page on it, you'll see that there are a number of different routing schemes. And this series of lectures isn't about any one of them, but we will take a very quick look at unicast versus anycast, which are two of those routing schemes. Now, the mention of routing often makes people think about routing tables, but that's also not going to be our focus here. Instead, this series of lectures is really all about networking in general. So why in the world have I called it routing? Well, I've framed this around routing because that's the data flow perspective. Don't think in terms of connections and networks. Instead, think about how each piece of data makes its journey from place to place. So what then is routing? Well, at its core, I think that routing is about deciding where data should go next. I think of routing kind of like direction markers on hiking trails. You might get to a place where it tells you things like, go that way to get to the parking lot, go that other way to get to the waterfall, that way over there is the lake, and that way goes to the peak. At that particular location, you can decide to follow any of those routes. But it matters where you are, because if you're at the peak instead, then you might just see one sign that says, go that way to get down, no matter where you're headed. In essence, routing is about making many local decisions about how to move data from one place to the other. Whenever data gets to a particular device or system or whatever, that thing needs to decide what to do with it. Where should it go? How can it pass it along so that it gets to the right place? Those devices don't have a global perspective and know exactly where all of the traffic is all of the time. They mostly just know about the data that they have right then and the connections they have available to them of where they could send it. So where does this routing happen? Well, if you imagine a user connecting from their client computer, routing decisions have to be made on the way to Google's network. And when data does make it to Google's network, more routing decisions have to be made on the way to the right resource. When the data does get to some resource, more routing decisions happen on the way from one resource to another. And that was all just in one direction, but data has to flow all the way back too, so these also all happen in reverse. So let's take a look at the first one, getting data to Google's network. So when you have the time, I'll see you in the next lecture.